Well, kids, how many years old are you?
I am this many.
Okay. 5,
6,
7,
4,
9,
11,
11,
6,
6. Okay, so the you're 4.
I'm 4.
You're 4. 5. Now, does that mean that the oldest kid here is 7? Is there anybody here who's older than 7? You're 7, right? You're 9, pardon me. You're 9? You're 11, pardon me. Okay. Okay, you're the oldest kid here. You're 11. All right, kids, how old do you think I am?
29.
I am 72. I am old enough to be the father of your grandfather. And for 50 years, I've been going into the woods and taking pictures like these. And have you noticed how many of the books at Time for All Ages are about people being in the woods? How many of the stories happen out there in the trees and the forests? It's because the woods are a special place, even magical. And all these pictures were taken at just one place in the woods, and at the center of that place is the camp that our church belongs to. And that's what we're focusing on today. It's called Camp de Benneville. Have you been there?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay, you were going to say.
I just wanted to tell you, black bear, mice, and even brown bear can live in the woods.
That's absolutely right. And there are brown and black bears in these woods. Now, some of you said you've been to the camp. Would you raise your hands again if you've been to the camp? What do you remember best about being in the camp?
I think I asked Did I
Does anybody else remember something really, really well? Did you have a good time? Now, if you could be in one of these pictures right now, which picture would you want to be in? Tell me. Which one?
would like to be in the forest one is this one.
Oh, yeah, that's a good choice.
That one, this one right there with
Oh, good. Yes.
I would really like to be in the second one going this way.
You mean this one here?
No, up.
Up? This one?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that one too. The one that looks like an egg. Imagine you're walking down the trail, and that is a mushroom the size of a soccer ball. Pretty amazing. And in the picture, it looks just like the size of an egg, but it's really the size of a soccer ball. Now, this picture, which you pointed to, wild strawberries. And when we go to Camp de Benneville, it's in early October, and all the colors are changing. And the wild strawberry plants have leaves that are just as red as if they were actual strawberries. And now, look down here. You see these old trees? Those trees are 2,000 years old. They were alive when Jesus was alive. And when they die, the wood is hard as a rock. And I was at that same place 30 years ago, and these pieces of wood, which look like they're about to fall over and go away, looked exactly the same 30 years ago as they do now. Are there any other pictures you want to ask about? Yes. You mean this one here? Okay, good. That's a good choice. That is actually a living plant that grows on hard rock. It's called fungus, and you don't want it in your house, but out in the woods, it's beautiful. It's just a vivid yellow green. That's really a good choice. And one of you mentioned the woods here. beautiful woods. And when you go to Camp de Vanderbilt, the whole camp is surrounded by pine and fir and cedar, and you see all those different kinds of trees. And then up in the big pictures there, the one up in the corner with the water, that's where the Santa Ana River starts. It starts right next to the camp. And then the one with the ferns. Why is one of the ferns green and the other fern is yellow? Why is that? It's because it's fall, it's autumn in the mountains, and it's getting cold at night, and the frost bites at the fern, and that's the difference you're seeing. And then there's the picture of the trees, and then there's another plant down there in the corner called bunch grass that turns bright red at that time of year. So it's a great time to be at the camp, and today is the best day for your parents to sign up. And in fact, it is the last day to get the best rate on Camp de Vanderbilt. And Reverend Kent tells me that reservations are almost full, but not quite. So we hope you can come. There's great food, lots of games, and best of all, you'll be in the woods.
That's right. So like Glenn was saying, today is, thank you, Glenn. We can squeeze in a few more folks or a few more families to de Benneville, but we're getting very close to our limit. So if you're interested, you really need to probably sign up fast. Teresa in the office can help you do that. I also wanted to mention, so Glenn has been taking nature photography for a very, very long time. And beyond being a sort of individual nature lover, he's also very active with the Sierra Club. He used a lot of his photography to create this book that's a fundraiser for the Sierra Club. There will be copies of it for sale after the service for $20. All proceeds are benefiting the Sierra Club. All of the photographs that you've seen today come out of this, are in here? Yeah. As well as many other books of California nature. So take a look after the service. With that in mind, we're going to send you guys on to your class, and we'll see you in a little bit. Our reading today is a poem by Wendell Berry. It's called The Peace of Wild Things. He writes, "When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free." I invite you now into a time of gratitude, reflection, renewal, and hope. Amen, and blessed be. So I know we have just done our time of meditation, but I want you to take another couple of deep breaths with me. And feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel the fairly comfortable, nicely padded chair that you're sitting in. Feel the cool air of our air-conditioned space here. And look around you. Notice how strong these walls are, how safe they are. Notice the roof that shades us from the hot sun today and, in theory, protects us from the rain. when it ever might come. And notice the other people in this room. There are, I would guess, 80 other people in here today. The other people in this room want very badly to be kind. They're not perfect, but they are good and they care about you. After the service today, we'll have some simple, tasty snacks. There's plenty of food for everyone who wants it. We'll enjoy those snacks probably as we watch our children play together and laugh together in this safe, comfortable, beautiful place. Breathe deeply and relax. You're safe here. Your body is safe here. Your heart is safe here with these people. There is enough for each one of us here. My friends, we are living in paradise. The task before us is to remember that fact. Now, Tapestry is a wonderful and somewhat special place, but most of us live most of our lives in pretty similar circumstances to what we're doing here today. There are plenty of resources, plenty of reasonably kind people. We are as safe as any living being can reasonably expect to be. Today, we're talking about paradise and different ways of understanding paradise and what they mean for us as Unitarian Universalists. Our opening hymn today was one that I grew up singing non-stop, Morning Has Broken. It has strong allusions to Eden, the sort of mythical paradise that existed at the beginning of creation. It begins, morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. The hymn relates the beauty of nature back to this perfection of the Garden of Eden. It asks us to remember the idea of a perfect beginning, but not as a point of contrast. It doesn't say, oh, remember when things were so great back then, back in the garden? It asks us to remember that mythical perfect garden as a similarity to this beautiful day. The hymn ends with the great invitation to praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. This is a fundamental statement of Unitarian Universalist belief. Not the God part, but the fact that every morning is a recreation of the goodness of existence. Today is just as good, with just as much fruit and potential as any other day of creation. We were never kicked out of the garden or kicked out of paradise. We just sometimes forget that we still live there. UU theologian Rebecca Parker and her friend Rita Nakashima Brock wrote a book that makes exactly that point. The book is called Saving Paradise: How Christianity Traded Love of This World for Crucifixion and Empire. It's a little bit of a heavy book and way too long. But they argue that Christianity was originally more about celebrating paradise in the here and now than it was about sin and brokenness. In this very, very long book, they track the history of Christianity from its first centuries to present day and ask how its early vision of beauty evolved into a focus on torture and sin. They offer a pretty good argument that those pieces of torture and sin came more out of the Roman patriarchal culture than they did out of the original teachings of Jesus. So part of the work of Unitarian Universalism is to reclaim the idea that creation is good, that people are good. We may not be running around naked in a garden. Life may not be completely perfect all the time, but it's amazingly good. And remembering that is a powerful rejection of a world fascinated with scarcity, competition, and punishment. Remembering the goodness of every day is a deeply faithful and radical act. On Thursday afternoon, several of you were there at the Wisdom Circle discussion group at Laguna Woods. And we were talking about Sabbath being more than one defined day of the week. We were talking about how Sabbath really means any time you set aside to be appreciative of the wholeness of life. And pretty much everyone agreed that one day of the week, every week, was not the most helpful rhythm for Sabbath. We thought that this sort of appreciation is best done on a daily basis. And I think Daya put it best. She spoke about the necessity of waking up every morning. She said, "I have to wake up and be grateful for the day. I have no choice. It's necessary for my emotional well-being." She's a wise woman. Paradise isn't lost in some perfect garden of yesterday. And it's not just some far-off destination that we can only visit now and then. Living in paradise mostly requires us being awake to the beauty and the opportunity that surround our lives. Paradise is in our backyard, but sometimes we go and travel to visit a special paradise somewhere else. Today, in the middle of a dried-up lake bed in the middle of Nevada, a very particular sort of festival begins. Through this week, 50,000 people will join in a music and arts festival unlike any other on the planet. It's called Burning Man. I had the great opportunity to participate in Burning Man back in, I think, 2003. It was a long time ago, and 2004. Though it started out as a small artist gathering on a beach outside of California, it's grown precipitously over the years. For many people, this is a little slice of paradise. It's very hard to describe, so I've brought some pictures to describe some of the key elements for you today. So can you back up a little bit? So one of the key elements are these massive sculptures that wouldn't fit anywhere else. A lot of them are kinetic, so they have a lot of movement involved, and many of the sculptures involve shooting large amounts of fire out of them. Another key piece of the creativity comes in costumes that people wear. Some of them are quite elaborate. Some are less elaborate, but everyone makes an effort to express themselves with creative outfits. Literally everyone. Well, those pictures didn't get included. And beyond the sculptures and the costumes, there are art cars. Some of them are pretty small. Others are gigantic parties on wheels. All of them are creative and beautiful. And then there's the common appreciation for burning art as a sign of impermanence. And most importantly, Burning Man creates a tremendous community of cooperation and respect. Let's see our last slide. There we go. So all of this magic occurs against the backdrop of a dried up lake bed with searing hot days and surprisingly cold nights, unpredictable dust storms. There's a dance party occurring all day, every day, with electronic music filling pretty much every space within the town. There's a culture of fluid sexuality, and a wide array of drug use is enjoyed. Now, some people invest in RVs and make the weekend a more comfortable experience. Most people, though, camp for the week on this dried up lake bed and use porta potties for a week. There's a whole lot more going on than the amazing art and good vibes. Burning Man is a pretty rugged experience that takes a lot out of you. So I wanted to describe this version of paradise for a couple of reasons. Most obvious is the idea of paradise differs greatly between people. What is paradise for some is a nightmare for others. I would rather go to Burning Man than go on a cruise. I would rather climb Mount Kilimanjaro than spend a week in Rome. We all have different tastes. Of course, it's not all black and white, though. You get a little bit of both in most circumstances. There are only so many places that you can go to build a 50-foot tall fire-shooting sculpture of a lotus. You have to do it in the desert, where no one wants to be. You tend to get a little bit of both the good and the bad in most circumstances. Paradise is not perfect. It's amazingly beautiful, it's life-transforming and energizing, but it's not perfect. Paradise is often a mixed bag. That's one of the things you learn about it. The other interesting point about Burning Man and Paradise is the way that participants relate that one very peculiar week with the rest of their lives. It's a big investment of time and money, and participants go through all of that effort for two very different reasons. For some, it's a pressure release valve. It's a world that is totally different and totally separate from their everyday lives. You may not expect it from the pictures, but all sorts of people participate there. There are artists and students, but there are also attorneys and computer programmers and accountants and elected officials and everyone else. Some folks go there to escape for one whole week into a world that is radically different, a community of fun. They go to paradise because it's different and separate from their lives. Other people, though, experience Burning Man as an extension of their everyday life. Instead of seeing it as a separate fantasy land, they understand that Burning Man has something to teach them about themselves. They see the creativity fostered during that week as nurturing an ongoing desire to appreciate and to create beauty in the world out of whatever you can. They see the gift economy and the radical hospitality that happens there as something to take home to their own neighborhoods and their own communities. Now, I don't want to knock having fun just for the sake of having fun. But paradise, I believe, is something that's meant to be shared. It's not an individual experience of bliss. It's an awakening to the realization that we can flourish together. It's not just an individual experience of beauty, but being so deeply moved by beauty that you have to share it. You have to act to preserve it. Waking up to paradise, recognizing the beauty in our lives and in the world, is finding some salvation and wholeness in life. But Unitarian Universalists don't believe that salvation is an individual act. We believe that salvation and wholeness are community experiences. Universalism is a belief in universal salvation. It originally meant that God wouldn't condemn anyone to eternal hell. If anyone got into heaven, then surely we all would eventually. That's what it used to mean. Today, we understand universalism and salvation in a different light. We aren't so focused on heaven and hell as we are on this life, and finding meaning, wholeness, salvation in the here and now. And we still believe that no one gets there alone. Paradise is not a solo undertaking. It's a garden of hope to be shared with others. If the defining feature of paradise is a garden, then it's not about the walls that are high. It's about the gates that are swung wide to welcome everyone in. We believe that salvation is in this life. If there's wholeness or peace to be found, it is in the here and now. We don't know much about what happens after death. What we do know is that this life can be filled with meaning and wonder and peace and wholeness. So rather than investing in heaven, we invest in finding salvation in this life. We look for paradise here, today, every day. That's our calling. And we know that it's only paradise if it's large enough to be shared. Just recently, at a retreat, a colleague pointed out to me the redundancy of our seventh principle. I'd never noticed this in 36 years of being a Unitarian. That seventh principle is, we covenant to affirm and promote the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. We are so easily seduced into imagining ourselves as isolated, independent people that it's possible to speak of an interdependent web of all existence and still forget that we too are caught up in that web. So we have to add that final reminder of which we are a part, to remind ourselves of the fact over and over again that our lives are tied up together, that our salvation is too. And we began this morning talking about nature as paradise, so I want to bring us back there to close our time together. More and more we learn that our well-being as a species depends on the health of our whole planet. More and more we're realizing that our survival as a species depends on making significant adjustments in the way we live, particularly us here in the developed world. We who consume tremendously more resources in our everyday life. Now, enjoying nature is one of the easiest and probably the most readily shared experiences of paradise among us. Our opinions of Burning Man and Rome may be different, but we all like nature, right? So enjoy it. Enjoy nature, love nature, know that it is good, and also know that if it is truly to be paradise, it must be shared. Protecting the environment isn't just about the quality of life here in South Orange County. There is more at stake than your favorite hiking trail, or even a clean ocean in the Pacific. This paradise, this garden of plenty that we love, is shared with 7.3 billion other people. It's a big garden. This interdependent web of existence, this shared salvation, is a very big project. But it's real, it's every day of our lives, it's paradise on the line, and we're all in it together. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, knowing the light remains in the warmth and compassion of our hearts until we are together again.
Would you take the hand of someone near you for a moment for our closing words? Before we gather here again, may each of us bring happiness to another's life. May each be surprised by the gifts that surround us. May each of us be enlivened by constant curiosity. Go in peace and let the light within you be a blessing to the world.